Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic.
What's the worst secondhand embarrassment you felt from someone else's actions? My father called my 8th grade teacher a hoochie mama during the parent-teacher interview because he heard it on TV and thought it was a compliment. This sounds like it could be a scene straight out of The Office. Or Abbott Elementary. Fearful. Had a similar moment myself. I heard the term knock boots and thought it meant to get out of here. Told a colleague, let's knock boots. I thought running a train just meant when a bunch of people go through anything really fast, as in, we ran a train on that buffet, which is exactly what I said. Boy, did I get an awkward education. Still don't know why my pastor knew that. A colleague of mine gave his resignation. Just a little context, he's a fairly attractive man. Well, this woman from HR comes by his cubicle to wish him for this future, IG. Anyway, she gives him a lap dance right there in front of the whole office. My company hired a stripper for a guy's last day, late 90s, and we all had to watch. It gives me shudders to this day. They rejected my idea, which was, let's rent a monkey for the day. Also bad idea, in retrospect. At least they didn't try to combine the two ideas. If HR is giving lap dances, I feel this might be the kind of workplace I could turn up with bells on. Hip rotations department. What is anyone gonna do? Complain to HR. It's the perfect crime. I went to a comedy open mic and this one girl just crashed and burned so badly. We made brief eye contact and I wanted to crawl under the table on her behalf. I'm Sweet D and the joke's on me. My friends and I would randomly pop into this alternative comedy club where most nights it's just comedians performing for comedians. It was on a bike path and free. So, it was a small group of us, other comedians in the back. I sat with one friend up front and the rest of our group behind. This one comedian, who's probably a savant in some ways, starts his set. No planned jokes with punchlines, just really eloquent stream of consciousness. But then, about 5 minutes in, something turns really dark with him. He just starts beating himself up, still in really eloquent stream of consciousness, but severely misanthropic and uncomfortably depressing shit. Another 5 minutes in, and my friend nudges me to want to leave because we're watching this guy just implode in public. We turn to find the entire room has already left, and as we walk away, he narrates about that too. Not really cringy, just really sad. My hope is that the comedy was supposed to be alternative enough that that was the goal, at which point, he's a genius. This reads like the best scene David Lynch never filmed. This is why I can't watch live comedy. Same, at least for people below a certain popularity. It all feels so forced. Even if it's kinda funny, the laughing is always cringy to me. Like a laugh track almost. Like, oh that was funny but not funny enough to genuinely laugh, but I know I have to vocalize that it was funny, so ha ha ha, ugh, just shoot me. I had no idea this was a thing until I had a friend break up. We kept inviting a couple out to stand-up shows with us. We lived in LA and I thought it was really cool to see like 6 headliners in a row working stuff out for cheap, but apparently it was agony for them. I remember watching a comedian at a comedy club. He was awful. The audience were not laughing at all and he was becoming more and more agitated. At one point he stubbed a cigarette out on his arm, told us all to go F***K ourselves and stormed off the stage. This is not unusual at open mics, but it is how you get better. The guy introducing her said she was a regular, so I was really hoping it was a bit. The silence said otherwise. I still hope it was a bit. I was helping a friend deliver some flowers for a wedding. She asked to borrow my van and I offered to drive as the quantity was too much for her little caddy. When we arrived, I backed the van up to the door to make unloading easier. She got out first and opened the back door of the van. A young woman came out of the building with a big smile saying, "Thank you for this," and the usual general chit-chat explaining that she was actually the bride. At that moment an older gentleman came out and said, "Do you need a hand, my love?" To which my friend replied, "Oh, you must be the father of the bride." Hi. There was a long pause and then the bride cleared her throat and said, "Not quite, this is my fiancé." Cue the next 20 minutes or so being completely silent. TBF, it won't be the last time someone assumes that. Probably not the first either. When I lived in Germany, occasionally my friend and I would play girlfriend or daughter when we saw attractive 20 to 25-year-old women with 50-plus-year-old men. When I was 22, I went in for surgery, and my dad, mid-50s at the time, drove into my city to take me in, then waited while I had surgery so he could be there when I woke up. He hung out with me in my room for a while until I told him I was okay to be alone. I had to stay overnight. Well, he told me that while I was in surgery and he was waiting, the nurse that was updating him was referencing me kind of awkwardly. Like she was avoiding making any sort of reference to what our relationship was. My dad thought it was really weird and at one point referred to me as his daughter. Apparently the nurse looked super relieved after that and let him know the reason she hadn't referred to me like that before was because she's been burned in the past. Apparently she once updated an older man in a waiting room about his daughter, only for him to get very insulted and reveal she was his girlfriend, wife, don't remember which. She was never going to make that assumption again. On a date when the guy decided it'd be super romantic to sing to me very loud in the middle of a busy mid-tier chain restaurant. It was either Red Lobster or Olive Garden, wasn't it? In college, first day of class, the teacher got upset with a student and said, "Hey, wake up. You, the boy with the long hair, wake up." He kept persisting and everyone in the room suddenly understood the student in question was in fact a blind female student who had her eyes closed, because she was blind. The teacher realized it at the same moment as everyone else and just said, "Oh. I've made a grave mistake. OMG, this is really embarrassing." A friend of mine in college shit himself during class. It was not a big class and everyone noticed and smelled it. He had food poisoning and it was quite the shit show. After having experienced it, I'm convinced food poisoning was what people thought was a devil possession and subsequent exorcism back in the day. You shake violently, throw up and shit constantly and speak gibberish, then you're almost good to go after 24 to 48 hours. If you need me, I'll be in the bathroom exorcising some demons. My house was hosting a party in college and some guy got blackout drunk and shit his pants. His friends were not helpful at all, so we called him an ambulance for alcohol poisoning. Next morning we get a knock on the door from pants shitter in a hospital gown. He was discharged from the hospital but lost all his belongings the night before. So he walked 4 miles through a large city in college town in just a hospital gown to come back to the house where he shit his pants to hopefully find his phone and wallet. Thankfully he found his stuff and one of my roommates took pity on him and drove him home, but it was a rough 24 hours for that guy. Wow, what terrible friends. Poor guy. I would have to drop out of college. My parents are hooked on the show Ink Master, so now they think they are experts on tattoos. So every time I am out with them, they stop the waiter, bartender, random stranger and ask about their tattoos. They say, "We watch Ink Master so we are fascinated by tattoos," which in reality means we want to see yours up close so we can judge it after you walk away. Freaking embarrassing every time. Lol. I had a bizarre sort of opposite experience. I had a boss who had clearly visible tattoos on his biceps. One day, he pops off on a rant about people asking him about his tattoos. Says he can't believe people would actually have the nerve to ask about something so private, that it's so intrusive, blah blah blah. I mean, I get that you get the tattoos for you, but I also don't understand the mindset of, I'm so upset people notice all this stuff I have painted on me. Quote, I don't think it's private if it's literally on display for the whole world to see. That's like saying your haircut is private, assuming you are not a hijabi, don't cover your hair. Because of injuries I had to work a register for a while at a big box lumber store. I'm an older guy. The young cashier next to me had several piercings. So, Joe customer walks up with his shit and says pretty loudly, "Nice piercings, have you got them anywhere else?" I literally looked at him sideways and said, "Jesus, man." Other people in line gave him some shit too. He tried backpedaling, but it only made it worse. Good for you calling his shit out. As a redhead, I used to get the same old, "Do the carpets match the drapes?" question all the time, and unfortunately it made me realize I hung out with a bunch of immature fuckheads because not one of them would call the asshole out for being creepy or rude. Thankfully most people these days just ask if I'm a natural redhead and refrain from asking about my pubes. Face with rolling eyes. OMG, now that is seriously bad. Like someone judging food because they watch Gordon Ramsay on TV, so they know. And on that note, commenters all over the place judge Ramsay for being a terrible chef so much it's ridiculous. Watching my divorced jobless sister's life coaching videos on Instagram. My ex-best friend started a cold-pressed juice company. Her husband's rich parents bought all the equipment for her. A few years later she cheated on him, left him, and closed the business, leaving behind most of the equipment and still owing his family thousands of dollars. Now she gives people financial and life coaching advice and is trying to start a cult with her new husband. They're building huts in a field, hosting sweats, and constantly trying to get other brain-dead hippies to join them. IDK what it is about cheaters, but I do find it funny that they all refuse to acknowledge their shitty past and bury it as growing moment. My ex has a similar story minus the business. She's now a personal trainer and refers to me as her dark period that pushed her into fitness as if I was some evil wizard. No, you throated a bass player in a band. I had nothing to do with that. There was this awkward kid who was adjacent to our college theater majors group who sometimes came to hangouts at my apartment. Well, the guys were all discussing the movie Apocalypto, and someone said something about the Mayans, and this kid chimes in with the most condescending, arrogant laugh and says, "It was the Aztecs, my guy." Easy mistake to make though. The person he corrected was cool about it and replied, "I'm pretty sure it was the Mayans in the movie," and this dude then lost his shit. He stood up, aggressively approached the other guy and screamed, "It was the fucking Aztecs." I know what I'm fucking talking about. Everyone went silent and was super uncomfortable when another gal chimed in and said, I just googled it and it was the Mayans. Aggressive dude turned 50 shades of red and just went back to his seat mumbling under his breath and didn't speak to anyone the rest of the night. It was so uncomfortable and I think about it every so often and cringe. My ex-husband did something similar to this. He had a group of friends over and they were watching Master and Commander. The Doctor gets on screen and one guy goes, oh, that's the guy who played Chaucer in A Knight's Tale. My ex says, no, it's not. I've seen that movie 1,000 times and it's not the same guy. The first guy replies, I really think it is. My ex stood up and stomped off into our bedroom. The guy asked where he was going and I answered, he's going to look it up. I had to go to the bedroom 30 minutes later and convince him to come out because his friends were going to leave and I was tired of making excuses for him. He didn't want to come out because he was wrong, and he hated being wrong. Can't imagine why you divorced him. Tears of joy.